Hello and welcome to the channel. My name's Mike Walker and today I've been flying my newly acquired DJI Mavic Air drone. It's a great quadcopter and quite an improvement over my old DJI Spark. The features of the Mavic are well documented on YouTube, but the one for me that turned me from the Spark to this is the 4K recording. I film most things in 4K now for even if the end product's 1080, I still film in 4K, and then I've got the option to squeeze, downsize or whatever I want to do with it. So the fact that this records in 4K and at 25 frames is brilliant. The Spark only gave me 30 frames at 1080. So that's a big improvement, and I've also got a choice of 120 frames on 1080 if I want, so I can get some nice slow motion. But 9 times out of 10 I'm going to be using this at 25 frames in 4K. Now this footage was shot using Sennheiser colour with a custom profile set to 0 sharpness, -1 contrast and -1 colour. And there's no log profile on this camera, so this is the nearest thing you can do, which is use a fairly flat profile and reduce the contrast and colour in camera so that you can bring it back out in the edit. And that works quite well, and I'm going to show you how I do it with my footage a little bit later on. The exposure was set to auto, but with an ND filter attached to slow the shutter speed down to give a more cinematic feel. And the reason for this is the exposure triangle on these cameras. You've no aperture difference, so the only thing that alters is the ISO and the shutter speed. You don't really want the ISO going very high. You want to keep that as low as possible, preferably 100. And the only way you can get the shutter speed down is to attach an ND filter. You need to get that motion blur in there to give it that cinematic look. The white balance was set to sunny, even though it was a pretty hazy day, but I prefer the slightly cooler look that the sun preset gives you over the cloudy one. The cloudy one is a little bit warmer. So even though it was hazy, probably a little bit cloudy, I kept it on the sunny. It was great fun flying the Mavic Air. I found it really enjoyable. I found the connection between the drone and the remote control was a lot better than I've experienced with the Spark. The Wi-Fi system it uses seems to be a lot more solid, and I didn't once lose connection at all. I felt confident in sending the drone a little bit further, although I always kept it in line of sight. In fact, the furthest I went was 800 feet, which is the shot right at the beginning of the video where it goes away for the first time. It will actually do 2 miles, which just shows how good that Wi-Fi connection is. As mentioned earlier, I did say that I was going to show you how I treat the pictures on the timeline in Premiere. And here we have this is my edit workspace, which is slightly different to the default one. So what we're going to do first is create an adjustment layer. Now if you right click in the project bin or the project window and go new item and adjustment layer, that will bring up a window which just confirms that your sequence settings are what you want the adjustment layer to be, and I'm going to say yes to that, and that's created an adjustment layer that matches the sequence. I'm now going to drag that adjustment layer onto the timeline and stretch it so it goes all the way across from the start to the finish. And what happens there, whatever I put on this adjustment layer is going to affect all the clips below it. So everything below it is going to be treated. So the next thing to do is go to the colour workspace. So workspace, colour. I'm now bringing up the Lumetri Colour workspace. The only difference I'd make to this is I just put the scope. So I prefer to have a scope. As opposed to the histogram, I do quite like the Luma, which tells me what the brightness of the picture is. I'm not bleaching out the whites or crushing the blacks too much. and that gives you an indication there. The 255 represents white and the 0 represents black. So we can see, looking at this picture, we've got we're in between those two areas, which is great. But we can go a little bit further and get a little bit nearer the whites and maybe a little bit nearer the blacks. So the first thing I'm going to do with the adjustment layer highlighted is I'm going to increase the contrast. So let's bring the contrast up just to make the picture pop a little bit. And as you can see, it's brought down the blacks a little bit and it's taken up the whites a little bit. That's what the contrast does. So on top of that, I'm just going to reduce the highlights a little bit. I'm going to increase the shadows just a little bit, and I'm going to move the whites so that because I've got the sky in this frame, I'm going to move the whites up to the 255 line there. So we've still got tones below that. Above that is perfect white. Below this line, the 0 line, is black. So let's look at the blacks. Having done the contrast, and we can just move this down to there. You see how they're just starting to crush there? Just bring them back up again and just have them touching. And that should give us a nice, safe picture. So we're not going too far above and below those tones. And having done that, I think the colours are okay. But I've finished now with the basic correction. You can close that off and open the creative one. I might just add a bit of vibrance there, maybe just what, 13% or so. We can see a before and after by clicking the adjustment layer, turning it on and off, and you can see on the waveform there how it alters. So that's looking good. Now what I want to do is just give it a bit of a look. So I quite like the orange and teal, so I'm going to go for that type of a look on this to make it look a little bit filmic. And if you click on this wheel here, this is in the creative, and what we're doing is we're going to bring the shadows to a bluish cast, or a teal cast if you like. So I've just knocked it down a little bit there, and then the highlights, I'm going to, as opposed to being white, I'm just going to give them a little bit of an orange cast. So I'm going up towards the orange about there, and let's just have a look at before and after. You can see what we've got there. That's the difference. I hope you can see that on YouTube. That's with the effect on, and that's off. So you can see we've brought more contrast, we've changed the colour slightly. Let's just go back to where there's some figures in the frame there. And look at that. That is on, that is off. So what we've got more contrast, and we've got a slight change in colour. And I quite like that, so I'm happy with that. And I think that's it for colour. So I'm happy with that. I'm now going to come out of that. The scopes are looking good. I'm going to come out of that and back to my edit workspace, and I'm going to add a crop. And the crop will give us more of a cinematic look as well. So we drag the crop over the adjustment layer. Don't forget, we're not affecting the clips on the timeline. We're just affecting the adjustment layer. So that is totally independent. But on the crop there, I'm going to add 10% at the top, so a 10% crop for the top and a 10% crop for the bottom, and that'll give us a nice cinematic look. I can show you a before. That's the before and the after. So before and after. That looks quite filmic now. Other things we can do is possibly add a title, a nice cinematic title. Or this is one from Premiere. Just shove this on here. I'll show you how to do this another time. It's quite an episode in itself. Is the its titles. So that one, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it there, and perhaps put it on at the end as well. So we've got the title coming up there, and then at the end the title comes up again at the end. Okay, that's it. I'm going to render this out now so you can see it, and I'll play it after this so you can see how it looks and how it compares. Okay, let's play the video and see what it looks like. There we are. So that's our filmic looking footage from the Mavic Air. And there we're going out to 800 feet. We'll post the title. Great place this in over the Pennines, right in the heart of the Pennines. Music makes all the difference, by the way. If you get a nice piece of music on there, it does make a massive difference to the feel and the effect. Just play a little bit with. That's without the effects that we've put on just now. And that's with. See the difference in the colours, difference in the contrast. It just affects the whole feel. I like the colour difference. And then fade to black and the title again. Well, that's it for now. I'll be doing a few more like this, so please like, share and comment below. If there's anything you'd like to see or find out how I do things in the edit, please ask me again in the comments or let me know. And thanks for watching, thanks for staying with us. I hope you've learned something, and I'll catch you in the next one.